Hello again. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and this is the Daily Blob Show. So this is my 1 hour, soon to be 2 hour daily talk show where I try to talk to you guys about what is going on in the real world of technology. So you guys go off to colleges, you go off to trade schools, you go off and get certifications, and people do really well teaching you how to configure Active Directory and how to configure Linux servers and how to do all that stuff. But people don't do so well explaining to you why, in fact, would you use Active Directory or not use Active Directory or any of that kind of stuff. So basically with this Daily Blob Show, I am trying to show you guys how all of this stuff works in the real world. So a lot of times I talk about topical things, so I've talked about the Amazon drones and all that kind of stuff, but I also bring in folks and interview successful people so that you can see how these people get to be where they are and what you can expect. So today I have Andrew Zaleski, who is the technical writer for what is called Technically Baltimore here, so that he can explain to you guys kind of like his life as a tech writer. Now the important thing for you guys to understand, the important thing when I do these shows is I am not bringing in a blogger. I mean, I guess sort of technically in a kind of roundabout way you could call him a blogger. But what I'm trying to say is he actually gets paid for doing this. This isn't like some guy sitting at his home who writes a couple blog posts a day and goes, I'm a writer. This guy actually, in fact, this is what he does for a living. And so we're going to talk to him so if you want to, you know, be a tech writer, you can kind of get an idea of what is required and what you can expect in life, you know. I would say if you want to write technically, you should write C#, but if you want to write posts, JavaScript. Yeah. So let me go over here, and basically, so you guys understand, so when we're talking about Technically Baltimore, this is the website that we're talking about. So this is a web magazine, technical.ly. There's a few different editions of it. There's Baltimore, Philly, Brooklyn, and I guess the national one. Overall, Technically has 8 employees. It is profitable, and it is what we would call a business. So we talk about in the tech world that you have startup companies and we have businesses, and startup companies are companies that take on a lot of funding and then try to get traction. They're not so worried about revenue. And then there are businesses, and businesses basically they use technology, but they go out and get revenue and profit and pay people just like normal businesses. And so Technically is basically like a normal business. So with that, without further ado, let's get over and start talking to Andrew. So this is Andrew Zaleski.
Yes.
So what is your job, or actually kind of explain Technically Baltimore then, so, or Technically Baltimore and the whole Technically company, kind of explain what's going on there.
So Technically Baltimore is, as you said, one of 3 editions, Technically Philly and Brooklyn. It's a media organization. We cover startups, entrepreneurship, venture capital. We also cover sort of the intersection of technology with cities. This could be the intersection of tech with city government, city policy, so think something like Uber and Lyft, ride-sharing services in cities. This could be digital access, how are schools using STEM-based education, how are schools trying to bring technology into the classrooms. Myriad different things, and we generally try to cover these topics under 5 categories on our site. There's access, there's creative stuff, there's civic stuff, there's dev stuff, so stuff that we can't do, and then business, general business, what are startups doing? This would be the funding, the venture funding type stuff.
So you guys talk more about like what is going on with people, companies, organizations, not so, nobody would go to you to figure out how to configure a LAMP stack.
No, no, you will not come to me to figure out how to configure a LAMP stack, and that's I think a key point. Many tech writers today, we are talking about the business of technology and how you're using apps in your life and things like that. We do not know JavaScript fluently. Do not ask us that. I know there's a Q&A portion. Someone's going to ask me about PHP. can't, you know. Although they're doing that hour of code this week, maybe I should just...
The hour of code, yeah, that's going to teach you.
Yeah, maybe I should fire that up. But
okay, so then to get this job, so what is your education then? Like, what's your educational background?
I went to Loyola University, Maryland in Baltimore.
Okay.
When it was still Loyola College in Maryland, at least for 2 years. And then when I was a junior, they made it Loyola University. I was an English major.
Yeah.
And I fell into a journalism minor because the classes fit up, and I was also an African American studies minor.
Okay.
So I majored in English lit. I read Shakespeare a lot.
Wow.
A lot, yes.
So to be a tech writer now with that education, do you need a college degree for what you're doing? Like, you know, with musicians, a lot of musicians say the only reason they go to college is just kind of meet people and party like that.
Sure, yeah. I think college is good to go and become an educated person and to learn how to write to learn how to command language and use it at your behest. And that's what going to college and majoring in something like humanities subject is good for.
Yeah, okay.
Learn how to write well.
Yeah.
Learn how to write with effect and affect.
Yeah.
To be a tech writer, if you just wanted to be a blogger, I don't suppose it's necessary to spend that much money at a university.
Yeah.
But I've found that it hasn't failed me yet, and I think if you look at unemployment rates these days, the percentage unemployment rate for people who have had a 4-year college education is much, much lower than the overall unemployment rate. So I think college is a good thing. Don't go if it's not for you, but if you'd like to go to college, well, go for it.
So either go or don't go.
Or don't go.
Very definitive there.
Yeah, we'll be very precise here.
Okay. So then what's your work experience? So before you got to Technically, I know you worked for the Urbanite. Like, what was your experience to get to where you are?
Yeah, you know, I wrote for the school newspaper and I edited the school newspaper. And my first job out of college, right in 2011, was working for Urbanite magazine, which was a monthly urban affairs magazine in Baltimore, covering the city, and it was... Think of what the site Atlantic Cities is now, put that into a print magazine and make it just about Baltimore City. Okay. And you have Urbanite, along with, you know, such stuff as arts reviews and food reviews and music reviews. And that was my job for a year and a month. And then I started at Technically Baltimore in July 2012. So I've been there for about a year and a half now.
You've been at
Technically Baltimore, yeah.
Now, was there something, like, what do you think at least got you hired for Technically Baltimore? Like, what would, like being like a tech writer, was there something that stood out and you could say, I know because I had a degree, or I know because I don't know.
I think, so they were looking to hire a reporter, a journalist, and they wanted someone with that experience.
Yeah.
And journalists, we'd say this is a nice part about being a journalist, the interesting part. This is perhaps the reason why many people loathe journalists, but journalists tend to be generalists. We go out, you do research, and you interview people, you look for evidence, and you try to learn as much as you can about a subject prior to writing an article about it.
Yeah.
And so I think I was hired because I had journalism experience, I had a journalism background, I had a track record, I had a clip file, other articles that I could point my now bosses to.
Yeah.
Then when I was interviewing and say, hey, I do journalism, I think I could do it well for you.
Yeah.
Please hire me.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So what is your actual workload in a given day then? Like when you wake up in the morning, do you have a 9 to 5? Do you have what the hell? Do you just have to get in a quantity?
Yeah, I'm generally working from about 8 to 6.
Okay.
With the hours before 8, just reading the news, seeing what's going on, checking Twitter, going through social media feeds, seeing what is happening, going through Feedly. We try on Technically Baltimore to publish every day of the week between 4 and 6 posts, at least 4.
Okay.
Now some days you don't get to 4 because, for instance, yesterday we had a professional development day. You will not see 4 posts on the site today because... but generally at least 4 posts a day. Now these are not all fully fledged articles.
Okay.
Some of this is just pointing to other news out there. If you've heard of the term journalism.
Journalism? No, I've not actually heard of that one.
And I think I think the Sunlight Foundation, the OpenGov Foundation down in DC, has this remarkable tool where you will type in journalism from articles and see how much has been just ripped from another piece. But it's essentially pointing to another article. So sometimes we'll reference stories that are in the Baltimore Sun and the Baltimore Business Journal. We'll just, a quick line, this is what it is. We'll grab a paragraph and then redirect everyone to that site. Go read it here. Okay. So some of that is just to point out things that would be in our wheelhouse, but stuff that we have either not covered yet or stuff that another place has done really good reporting on, and we want to send people that way. And then some of these posts are, stories that I come up with and reporting on the tech and startup community in Baltimore City.
So if you're talking about 4 to 6, I was thinking about this today because I pretty much knew the answer to that question. So if you're talking about 4 to 6 articles a day, I mean, that's 20 to 24 articles per. That's a lot of articles, like every week. That's not like so where do you even get the idea? I mean, like, even if you wrote 3 sentences, I'm not sure I could do that 6 times a day, infinitum. Like, where do all those ideas even come from?
Yes, we have a secret trunk where we just pull stories out of. In the beginning it was slow going, trying to figure out who's out there and trying to talk to a bunch of people and different sources and seeing what's going on. About 6 months in, it became dramatically easier. Distinguishably so, because at that point we were more established. I was more established, speaking to a variety of people who traffic in the scene, and it was easier for me to come up with story ideas and see what's going on and where things are going. And then you take time to look at some other subjects more in depth based on previous shorter reporting. Just by way of example, in July we wrote a story about whether the state's cybersecurity industry is beneficial to Baltimore City, specifically the city. And that was a 2,000-word piece, but that was something that was built up over time from a series of much shorter posts along the way. So stories are there. I know it sounds almost impossible to get something like 4 to 6 posts up a day, but we manage. It happens.
So when you're going out there and you're talking with people, especially like technically, I remember when you guys acquired technically a year and a half ago from Brenner.
So yeah, we should make that distinction.
Oh, is there a distinction?
Well,
okay.
So technically Baltimore is in a partnership with Mike Brenner, who is a co-founder of an incubator space, Baltimore and Federal Hill. Mike Brenner had been running a site called startupbaltimore.org, and then when we acquired that, there was a post on his site, and you can find this in our About logs. And then we took over the domain, and it became technically Baltimore. Now this happened before I was hired.
So, but like when you were starting out here, how seriously do people take you? Like if you picked up the phone or if you knocked on somebody's door or emailed them, did you find that people actually responded, or?
It's all about confidence, people. Yes, yeah.
They did?
No, I understand where your question is coming from. You see something as the site as it is now is a redesign that we launched in March 2013. It used to be this WordPress template, and people looking at a WordPress template go like, "Who are you?" In some cases, so no, people were very receptive. It wasn't difficult to speak to people about what's going on.
Realize they're just showing up and going, "Hi, I'm Andrew."
Yeah, going to events and sending emails saying, "Hey, could we schedule some time to talk by phone? Could I stop by your office? This is who I am. This is what we do." We try to cover the early stage technology space. We do a bunch of other coverage. Could I come speak with you about that for an interview? That will be published in some sort of article form. Distilled to be published in some sort of article form.
So we're talking about 4 to 6 posts per day. And obviously quality, I mean, we all like to point out the 2,000 world. Beautiful. Yes. You write well. And whenever I be snarky about you, you write well when you do like the 2,000, but sometimes we get...
Thank you.
Obviously not 2,000.
Sure.
Like, are you happy with that article quality? Is that just part of the business now? And does that affect your career? That's one of the things I was wondering. Like when you now...
Does it affect career trajectory?
Yeah, like if people like read that and go...
No, I don't think so. So, It's not like I am an expert, because I am just a pup. I'm only 24.
Yeah.
I think there was a sea change that happened in the journalism industry largely after the market crashed in 2008.
Okay.
And with advertising revenues falling off, everyone suddenly said, oh crud, we need to get digital and we need to do it right now.
Yeah.
Now, how do you get people's attention on the internet? There was just scrolls of somehow gut knowledge that said, don't write long at all, or don't do anything in depth. Just give people like 50, 100, 250 word stuff, and they will love it. So, and you see that in journalism all over the place these days. Even if you are writing the long pieces for a place like The Atlantic, for instance, a man from Baltimore, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, writes, I mean, he writes beautifully. You want to talk about good writing. He'll write very, very long pieces for The Atlantic magazine, but he also has his column online, and sometimes those are really short bits. For our purposes at Technically Baltimore, we do shorter posts because we know that right off the bat, to put content up on the site, we won't have the time or the energy to do a longer piece right away. But the shorter posts prove to have a benefit over time because we're able to link back to stuff. We can see how a narrative around a topic evolves and changes and grows, and that's helpful for the reporters, especially because once we, and especially if you've not been a tech writer before or haven't really been in, say, Baltimore City's technology community startup scene before, it gives you the chance to try to acquire little bits of knowledge here and there really quickly, and then build on that over time. And then you always sort of have this pool of information you can refer back to just for yourself, just to refresh yourself on what has happened, and then to link back to in case other people haven't necessarily read all the other little pieces along the way.
Okay. So, when you talk about like building up and all that, you guys, because we talk, I am a metrics nut. I love numbers, pure numbers. Now, do you, like when you talk about an article being popular or whatever, do your bosses actually give you your raw numbers? Can you see what posts?
I can see my raw numbers. I can see how well posts do.
Okay. Does that actually, do you guys use that to shape, or do you just have it in your head, like We
use the data to shape some directions in which we travel, and it definitely isn't just something sitting in the back of our minds like, all right, that one did well, so. No, I think we look at what people gravitate towards, and we look at, especially if a story does well, what did we do in that article? What was this about? Were we showing photos of a new office space? Were we giving something a bit longer treatment? Were we talking about something that not many other publications in the city have talked about? What specifically were we doing with that article, and maybe how does this shape coverage in the future?
Okay. Now, one of the things we've talked about offline, and you seem pretty honest about, so bring it up here, is the income split for the actual publishing versus your events is actually a lot different than I would have assumed. So basically, you make far more money off of creating events like Baltimore Innovation Week, Philadelphia Innovation Week,
Philly Tech Week.
Correct. So basically, they do both events, and they do this publishing, and like I say, the events are far more than the publishing. So I guess one of the questions is then, do you know why they bother with publishing? Like, why not just do an event organization?
Well, the journalism is meant to put a spotlight on what is happening.
Okay.
So in other words, try to use that as a force of convergence. To then dictate what we look at in bigger events. And some of this has been documented by Neiman Journalism Lab. They've done, I think, 2 stories on Technically Media and talked about our how we make revenue and what the split is. No, the journalism very much pushes forward I'd almost say it's the impetus for what we tend to look at in our events. You had Ed Mullen on your daily Blob, and Ed is the new, along with Paul Minicarelli. I think I'm saying your name correctly, Paul. Please just we'll talk if I butchered it. I apologize. Is running the new Baltimore City Robotics Center in Holland's Market. We've done several stories about them, especially when Ed was trying to get that set up and sort of the jockeying that needed to occur to make sure that he could have the space. Over Baltimore Innovation Week, one of the first events was this Baltimore City Robotics Expo held at the space, and we reported about how he got the space set up, and then that event was there. And I think so people just arriving at the space who had read the article, knew a little bit about it, knew a little bit about Ed, knew what Vex and First Robotics are. You know, why people like Ed think a space like this is necessary in Baltimore City, and what needed to be done to arrange that sort of spot. No, I think the journalism and the events go very much hand in hand. I don't think it's a one without the other sort of thing.
Do you have, I know you're not the boss, and hopefully I will have them in that seat at some point, but do you have a feeling that if they did technically a different way that could actually make it profitable enough off of the journalism component, or do you think nowadays that they're, for something like what they're doing, that you need the external events? And again, just I know you're not the boss.
Maybe. Perhaps, you know, you look at stuff that's just digitally native. We don't have a print publication. You won't pull in advertising revenues off of print, and many places these days are losing their advertising revenues off of print. So the events are a core component. You know, this isn't a conceit or anything that I'm trying to hide. The events are a core component behind people getting paid. But that doesn't strike me as any different from what some bigger publications do. The New Yorker has the New Yorker Festival. The Atlantic has the Aspen Ideas Festival. Now, different people have their own opinions about the value of something like the Aspen Ideas Festival, but these places run these events because it's also seen as a revenue stream.
So that's actually not, because like I said, I'm not a writer, I'm a geek. So that's actually not like what you guys are doing. Actually, isn't that abnormal? This isn't like, oh my god, this is a shocking business model.
It doesn't strike me as that abnormal.
Really?
I think it might have been the 2011 report. The Tau Center up at Columbia University, Tau Center for Digital Journalism, issues these reports, or at least the last two I know I saw and read. 2011 for sure. I think there was one in 2010. But in one of those reports, you know, technically media got cited as something, you know, here's how we can make journalism profitable on the internet. Here's how we can try to, you know, salvage the journalism industry. It's a dying field. So no, I mean, it doesn't strike me as that off.
Now, one of the things I've noticed is, or at least it doesn't appear to be that way, it may be that way and it doesn't appear, is that surprisingly, you guys don't seem to have much sponsored material. Like, I would assume, you know, like I have people contact me and they say, we'll pay you X amount of money to do a review or to do a class or do, and what I look at with your stuff is, I mean, obviously you name drop or such, but it's nothing strikes me that it seems like it's sponsored, at least.
Like underwriting.
Underwritten
shilling. Let's get those dirty journalists. No, as far as I know, and from what I can see, we don't do any underwriting. We might do underwriting in the future. I know other sites out there do underwriting. What's the word these days? Sponsored content. And this is the sort of, and you know, it puts many a journalist on the edge of their chair because they say, you know, like, what's sponsored content? This just looks like a, you know, underhanded advertising. I guess the closest parallel I see is if you've ever flipped open a magazine and you see something like an advertorial or a sponsored section. Sometimes those are written by journalists, some of whom I know, you know, in the city. But that's sponsored content. Now, the people who are writing those probably make a living writing those versus doing journalism. But that's probably the print and online parallel is. But
you guys don't do that.
No.
Have you guys ever talked? Have they ever said why they don't? Has it ever been a philosophical thing, or is it just one of those? It's just never been an assignment, so you don't pay attention.
Yeah, I just don't think it's something we're looking at right now.
Really? Okay.
It might be in the future, but as of right now, it's just...
Yeah, okay. So, overall being a journalist, doing this, the technical writing stuff. So what, like when you got this job a little over a year ago, what's ended up being easier than you expected? Like when you got this, you know, whenever you get a job or an assignment, there's just assumptions you walk into. And what ended up being easy? What did you, this is going to be horrible, and then it was like, oh, that's not too bad. Was there anything that turned out to be a lot easier?
You know, and we touched on it earlier, the post count.
Yeah.
I was coming from a magazine. I had only ever written, you know, one-off articles. You get some time to do it. Magazines are fact-checked. I love fact-checking. Yeah, I just think the post count.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, geez, you know, how am I going to be able to do all this writing? Where really am I going to find the material for this? Okay. You know? And over time, that is, those fears have been washed away.
Really? Okay. And then, so what has been horribly harder or worse? So you walked in and was like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then you just sitting there a month later like, oh, God.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think every month we try to do something that's more public affairs type journalism. Okay. Something that might be a little longer. Okay. Yeah. Not for the sake of having extra words and inflating my ego, even though that's one of the reasons why George Orwell taught us that writers write. But for the sake of looking at something, looking at a topic that also has relevance to the tech community and trying to bring it to life in some way. Yeah. In a meaningful way, not just empty words on a page. We did a very long story in the beginning of November, long for us, about maybe like 1,700 words, about Uber and Lyft and ride-sharing startups in the city. And we did this was just after, several months after Uber was subpoenaed by the Maryland Public Service Commission for a list of its drivers. Okay. This was a couple weeks after Yellow Transportation sent a letter to the Maryland PSC asking them to issue Lyft a cease and desist letter. So that for us was a little bit longer look at, you know, we ride sharing, these are startups that come out of technology. We know that people in the tech community use them. We know that these startups have their sort of city-based headquarters at incubators in the city. What is going on? What's happening with the PSC in relation to these startups? How do these startups feel about it? How do drivers working for these startups feel about it? So that can be a little difficult. Finding the subject and carving out the time to work on something like that.
So lots of articles, not too hard, but finding that specific long form, that's where it gets a little more.
A little bit, yeah, because you want to put some thought into it. I actually read a great piece the other day, and it was on the Atlantic, and I forget the author's name, which is a sin because this man, I think, edited the best of American Magazine Writing 2013, and he said long form is the dumbest word he's ever heard, because in a way it's almost given journalists carte blanche to just write as much as they want on the internet. You know, how many adjectives can you pack in before the word Eli Etherton before you just type his name and say, all right, here he is. So yeah, I think carving out the time to do a story like that and do it well and not just have it be self-aggrandizing for the journalist or the publication, but provide some meaning and depth and reason for being and something that readers appreciate and want to know about.
Okay. Interesting. So, I guess the general Odesk. Again, you hear me like, oh, I'm so happy about Odesk and finding writers. What's your view on Odesk, both as competition to yourself and would you ever put yourself onto Odesk?
No.
No.
And I don't really pay attention to it.
Really?
I mean, I just don't.
It's like with me, you know, Best Buy comes in and you start freaking out, you know, when they bought Geek Squad. You don't even pay attention to it?
No.
That's cool. So you're in, or you're one of the plans in Baltimore. So Baltimore is the co-working facility in Baltimore, whatever. Basically, a lot of people get together. I don't know. It's co-working.
Baltimore is a co-working space in Federal Hill. It also serves as an incubator for early stage software startups, and then they also run 4 courses. They just wrapped up their first trial, these 10-week classes in front end and back end web development. One was in marketing and one was in design, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay, but the main thing, so you have like the community pass, so you can work out of there.
Yes, so that was part of this partnership with Mike Brenner when Technically Baltimore first started planning itself here in spring 2012. And it would be that once Baltimore is open, we have a community membership there. And some of that was just more so because I'm the only person in Baltimore. So the idea was to say, okay, if whoever this reporter is, whom we hire, needs to be around people, where can we put this person around people?
So I guess the question, because I've taken them on a little field trip to 1776 in a co-working facility, and so as a Generation Xer, as an old guy here, you know, I remember like when we complained about the cube farms, and so when I go into these open workspaces, these co-working facilities, I would lose my mind.
French presses for everyone. Everyone gets their own.
But I mean, there's no way. There really is. It's not about Baltimore or 1770 or any of them. I could not work at any of these places. But you're like the millennial generation. So how
God, we're sorry. We're really sorry.
I mean, but how do you feel? Like I said, I look at co-working and I would lose my mind. But you're younger, and so you're a different.
So you must love it. Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
You love top 27 cat lists, don't you? These 27 cats will change your life. It's funny. Whenever I go, there's another tech reporter in town who writes for Quartz, and he goes to Baltimore on occasion. Yeah. And when I go to Baltimore, they have this spot where there are couches, but there's this like partition in front of it. And I always put myself there if I can, if no one else is there.
Yeah.
And one time he comes up to me, he's like, "Why do you come over here in this little cave?" And I'm like, "Because I don't want to be bothered."
Really? Okay.
I like co-working in small amounts. It's a sometimes food. and everyone's different, you know. I just for me it's a sometimes food. I like being by myself when I'm writing.
Yeah.
I almost need that in a way.
Okay.
So yeah, co-working is a sometimes food.
Okay. So you don't do a lot of work there.
Yeah, I mean I certainly get there at least once a month, I try to get there. Well, I mean as a base level here. Yeah. And I'll try to get there a few times throughout the month to see what's going on, if there are new startups there, who new in the community space is there to make connections, talk to people. They get a fair amount of foot traffic from venture capitalists around the area and a variety of people, so sometimes it behooves me to be there to grab someone real quick, as we journalists are fond of doing. Hey, can I just talk to you for 5 minutes? I heard about this.
Okay. So, okay, sometimes good. And then one of the questions I ask everybody that sits in that chair is, we're in Baltimore, so like why Baltimore? So if you're a writer, you could probably be a writer darn near anyway. Where? So how, like, is there any special reason that you picked Baltimore?
So for me, I went to school here. I got my first job here.
Okay.
That was a big selling point. There was an editor at Urbanite, a great editor, great editor, someone for whom I still write on my freelance side for grist.org. Yeah. And you know, this man was a mentor, and I said, I want to work for him. And that was the job at Urbanite, and I had interned at Urbanite, loved Urbanite, was excited when I had the opportunity to spend some time there. Yeah. Baltimore is cheap compared to New York City or DC. Yeah. Rent-wise. It's on the Northeast corridor, even though you know, who's in the Northeast? Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C. Guys, you know, there's Philly and there's Baltimore. We're here. Like, the trains come through us. So, I mean, it's accessible. It's easy to get to other cities. Yeah. I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania. You know, it's close enough to friends that I had in high school who are now all in Philadelphia. Baltimore's just great. Baltimore is it gets the quirky label thrown on it a lot, which you know, there's a lot of idiosyncratic stuff about Baltimore. that I really enjoy. I mean, I live in Bolton Hill in the city. I love being in Bolton Hill. I am perhaps equidistant to the Brewers Art and W.C. Harlan, which is just wonderful. I can either get really good beer or really good cocktails, depending on my mood. No, I really do enjoy living in Baltimore. It's funny, I said to myself coming out of college, I'm going to stay here 2 years, and then I'm out.
Yeah, okay.
I'm in my 3rd year right now.
Real. Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And the final question before we get to the peanut gallery and...
Oh, God.
Yeah, okay.
What's that kid doing with that pompadour? Shave his head.
So, you know, the big thing that I hear whenever I go around all these startup folks, the big thing is it's going to change the world and everybody needs to do a startup and how amazing it is.
Meaningful with a capital M.
22-year-olds making billions of dollars. So curiously, you are like in the heart of this. So you spent a year in the heart of startup land. So when are you creating your startup?
I'm never creating a startup. It's just not what I want to do.
But why? I mean, like, no, seriously, like if you listen to these folks, I mean, it's the next coming of whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this thought leader talk. What's that parody account on Twitter? The fake Jeff Jarvis. Hyper-thinkfluencer. Hyper-glocal thinkfluencer. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this talk about how, you know, careers will not be non-existent because everyone will be creating their own career. You know, Nostradamus wants his act back. I just, no, it's not what I want to do. I want to be a journalist. I came out of high school saying, I went into senior year of high school saying I was going to be a heart surgeon. Huh? And I said that because, well, I had a grandfather who had several heart attacks and needed surgery, and so that piqued my interest. Yeah. And then at some point along the way, I learned that you could make a 6-figure salary doing it. And then I said, I don't want to go to school for 10 years. Wow. But I loved writing. I always loved reading, and I wanted to be a writer. And I said, journalism is the way to put food on the table. And then the stock market crash happened. So I'm like 0 for 3 here. But I really do enjoy and love being a journalist. I love being a writer. I don't know what else I would do that I would be as content doing. Okay. But no, I don't harbor aspirations of founding a startup. No, I mean I just don't, and that's not to.
Well, the only reason I say is because I mean you've been in the echo chamber. I mean it's loud in there, so
yes, it's quite loud. It's quite loud, but and it's not to disparage anyone else. It's not what I want to do.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, let's get to our sponsors, and then we'll start taking questions from the peanut gallery. I'm a little scared what you guys are going to ask today, but we will see. So let's go over to our computer. So like I say, so we can listen to the sponsors that help pay for all this. So again, technically, so it's technical.ly/Baltimore. So technically, if you want to take a look at it, you can see what they are doing. If you want to try to rip it off and do it yourself. Again, we've got our sponsors. So we have the new sponsor, Ear Clear. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to say how well it works, but basically these guys have this big syringe thing that I guess you fill with water, and it allows you to clean out your ears. So if you have a lot of gunk in your ears, apparently this will help you out. It's earclear.com, and they have the link in the description. Adaxes, A-D-A-X-E-S. Again, if you are doing Active Directory on like an infrastructure level scale, this is not for your small business with 5 users. This is, you're really doing Active Directory. They do Active Directory management and automation. This will make your life a lot easier. So if you need Active Directory automation, adaxes.com. Take a look at it. Phoenix Contact, our buddies. Phoenix Contact, they do all the industrial networking equipment. So if you're going to be putting in network equipment into factories, into oil refineries, into stuff like that, you're not going to be using Linksys. You want to use something like Phoenix Contact. So just take a look at them and figure out how to buy their stuff. TotalSem, TotalSem.com. Again, if you want your A+ certification, Net Plus certification, your Security Plus certification, they've got video training, they've got practice tests, they've got exam vouchers. They can definitely help you out. TotalSem.com. Spiceworks, so Spiceworks.com. They have a community, they have mobile device management software, they have network management software, all completely free. It's all ad revenue based. They are highly trusted. I have used them before when I was in the had the consulting business. I used them quite a bit. They are good and they're free, so just download it. Authenticate, again, our buddies over at Authenticate, Silo, their Silo little app for software as a service. If you have Twitter accounts, Google Plus accounts, any of that kind of stuff, and you have to share it amongst multiple users, this is the absolute best way to do it. Again, their technology is a little complicated to explain. This is not some Chrome add-in or Firefox add-in. This is a really complicated system, or complex, I don't know. It's good. So go to Authenticate, download it. You really want to use it. And of course, Veeam, V-E-E-A-M. If you just virtualized 100 servers and now you're trying to figure out how to back them up individually, Veeam is the backup solution for virtual management. And of course, they have free stuff. And you guys like free stuff. So so go to Veeam.com and play around with their backup free edition and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that is our sponsors again. If you are interested in making all of this happen, if you sponsor me, you get banner ads on the website, you get the shout out, you get the links, and it's all good. And it keeps all of this stuff running so I can do things like interviews and ask my interviewees embarrassing questions that I'm sure you guys are going to ask. So let me go over here and go up to view all comments and then see what you guys have to say. Hopefully you're not going to be like, Eli, we can't hear you, it's muted. Which I could imagine happening. Let's do this! Nice one. Sound is perfect this time. Good. I did tweak the sound. I've been playing with the sound a lot with these interviews. And again, as I tell you, all of you guys, this is all an experiment for me. And one of the problems with YouTube is that they don't give you trial runs. They don't give you sandboxes. It is either live or it doesn't exist. So that's doing all of these interviews. I've been having to play around with the sound, and so hopefully this is good for everybody. We don't know because we can't listen to it right now.
We can't hear a thing.
In the middle of the interview, Eli should start talking about ear clear. You guys are really bothered by ear clear. They want to pay me money to put an ad on my anyways. Yo, Eli, I'm thinking about learning to make apps for mobile platforms, iOS, Android, probably. What would you do to get started? I want to know what to learn, in what order, and maybe where from. That's a hell of a lot of question. I guess I would say, since we're doing the interview, we have to have this all wrapped in, is what have you seen? So you've been around a lot of these startup folks,
yeah.
And even if you don't want to be a startup folk, how have you seen them train their people? Because I know there's such a lack of programmers that they've been working on taking rather newbies and turning them into paid programmers. What have you seen?
Well, okay, so there's one startup in Baltimore City called Stack. They do advertising technology. Think of the variety of Excel spreadsheets you have to, say you're a publishing company, to handle your advertising. They want to put this all in one dashboard so you can have all these different systems talk to one another seamlessly. They said, we will pay you $20 an hour to learn Ruby programming if you came to Baltimore and you gave us 3 to 6 months of your time.
Really?
Now, of course, that comes with stipulations. You need to know what the command line is for starters and be functional on it. You know, it's not, you're a total greenhorn, come on in and we'll just show you what you need to learn. I think a lot of times computer science degrees are especially, well, sometimes among the startups that you see talk about computer science degrees being outdated, outmoded, they're obsolete, not necessary. Where did you learn your C#? I mean, where did you learn some of this stuff? You probably learned it from your computer science education. There's that. I can't really speak to the efficacy of something like Codecademy because I just haven't used it to learn that. I know you can use it to learn PHP and JavaScript. Maybe they teach Cocoa, things like this that you would need for iPhone programming. You know, locally, there are these efforts like the Baltimore Academy, like Stack, which we've talked about. This doesn't do any good for you if you're not in Baltimore City. I'm sorry. I think it's either a lot of playing around on your own, just doing it, you know, in that way, programming and journalism are rather similar, because it's better for you to just go forth, and just start learning. You know, grab a book, and just start learning.
Now, with you being out there, since the startups are all using programming language, is there any one that's kind of like when you hear people, I wish I had more of these, or these people get paid the most? Is there anything that's like stood out, like Ruby versus PHP?
Yeah, I think Ruby. You hear a lot of people talking about how they want Ruby programmers.
Yeah.
People can use that. PHP, you know, if you're messing around with WordPress customization and things such as that. Ruby, JavaScript, C# is not for fuddy-duddies. That's still out there.
Yeah.
You know, but I'd probably say Ruby is the thing I hear
Ruby is
more of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the top 3 tech fields right now and going on best for making bank? You said app development. Apps for what? And what other branches of tech? I need to feed 3 kids. Yeah. Well, what? I guess the question then is so like with the startup world, it's all apps. So what niche or what genre of apps seem to be the ones that are most... Because we've talked about, there's dog dating sites, and there's a bazillion of them that will all fail.
And it's difficult to make money on apps. I mean, there are people in Baltimore City who run mobile gaming and do their own apps, but you know, when I've spoken with them and I asked them, well, how much do you make? And they don't want to give me an exact number. I'm like, okay, are we talking a new Honda Civic here? You know, and they're like, yeah, around there. You know, it's... You can make a bet on something like cybersecurity. Yeah. Just look at how many Twitter accounts got hacked this year. Yeah. And that would probably be a safe bet, especially if you can begin speaking to government contractors who need this work. I mean, SourceFire is a city in the county here, a company in the county here that does cybersecurity. There's a cybersecurity company purchased $2.7 billion by Cisco Systems. Yeah, well, now they were founded more than a decade ago and have been at this for a while. In apps, mobile gaming has become a thing. I think if you're into something like gaming in the mobile space, you go into gaming, but then you sell your services creating apps to other companies that want them. Okay. What might be more prevalent over the next few years is more of these companies trying to build their own standalone apps. Okay. And they need people who can do that for them. Yeah. Either in-house or they're outsourcing this work. Especially because in-app advertising is going to go through the roof. Okay. I mean, just millions and millions of dollars going to this stuff. Yeah. So, you want an app, you want to be advertising services that way. These companies need people who can build apps. So, on your own, it might be difficult, but if you can set up your own sort of, I would imagine, shop for doing this, and you can begin commanding some of this work freelance style, you can perhaps build yourself up to a point where you're making a decent amount of money. I mean, you might be doing this on your own for a while, you know, just clearing 20, 25, 30K. But good things come to those who wait and work hard, right?
Let's see. Question, Andrew. Can you share some pointers? How do you engage the readers so they keep coming back?
How do we engage the readers? Well, sometimes I will trek into the comments field on articles. if people have those comments fields, oh man,
slog into the comments.
Jupiter.
Stay the hell away from those.
I'll go in there if people have questions, if there needs to be a point of clarification. We'll talk to people on Facebook and Twitter. I think much of our readership, these are people, and some of what we do is just the work of typical trade publications. You know, you're talking about a group of people who want to know what's going on in the world in which they live. And so that you kind of get a built-in audience that way. Some of it is tracking trends as best as I can, trying to see what people are talking about. For instance, in Baltimore City, education technology is huge. Everyone's talking about this right now and have been over the last year. So I'll say, okay, what out there is happening in education technology, either in the nonprofit space with a place like Digital Harbor Foundation, or with startups. For instance, there's a startup, AlloView, which is a tool for principals and school administrators to see how they're allocating their budget money. And this startup is going to the New York City-based EdTech accelerator. So seeing what's being talked about, trying to figure out what the new news is, and then we go into stuff like our back-end data, and we look and we see how articles are performing. We try to see if we're gauging the audience appropriately. And then, of course, all journalists have sources, and you speak with them, and they sort of say, look, this is kind of coming up, this is coming down the highway, you might want to be interested in this, and then we begin doing our own ferreting around to see what's happening.
I guess that's with what you're doing, especially since you're like the only writer for the Baltimore division. Do you have anybody that, like with me, these guys follow me, whether I do it on this YouTube channel or if I did it for somebody else? Do you have anybody that follows you that like, or is it more that you're a writer for technically? And I
think it'd be far too magnanimous for me to say that people follow me.
Well, I don't know.
I think people follow Technically Baltimore. If people follow me, I'm surprised and flattered. But I think people are reading the publication. People are reading what's on Technically Baltimore and what we're doing on there.
Andrew, what kind of experience do you have with tech? Do you have any experience with tech?
Oh, geez. I have a WordPress site that I did on my own and bought the theme for. It's interesting. I don't have much. Not a whole lot. Very, very basic HTML and CSS and PHP stuff. It's interesting because my father is a biomedical engineer and was in aerospace and mechanical engineering, and he has books on books like this, you know, MySQL, Objective-C, I mean, all this stuff, and it just skipped a generation. Which is why, and again, good to bring up again in light of the question, especially. Early in the interview, I said, many tech writers are reporting on tech startups, the business of tech. You know, and I certainly would never try to sell myself as someone who is savvier than even this guy when it comes to technology. Even this guy. Oh, God, terrible.
Damn.
Kick me out right now. But there are other great tech writers. The IT editor at Ars Technica lives in Baltimore City, and this is a man with a deep IT background. You know, he can get into those weeds and do it very, very proficiently. But on that note, I do this myself, and I think it's good for tech writers to do if they don't have a lot of experience. Figure out what, for instance, much talked about, much referenced, used programming languages, and begin dabbling. Try to get a basic understanding of what is going on, so that, say, someone tells you that they're making an app in a certain program, okay? And they tell you, well, it's going to take us 3 months to finish it. You need to be able to know, that could take you 2 weeks. Why is it going to take you 3 months? You know, and be able to ask that question. And you can do that if you begin at least acquiring a basic knowledge of what these languages are.
Have you noticed there's been much of a drawback since you don't have, I mean, like, all these geeks running around? Has it really been that? Do
my eyes glaze over? No. I think I've managed to pick up a fair amount just from speaking with people, doing interviews, talking to a variety of startups and different companies, and beginning to understand the soup that they swim in and figure out what exactly they're talking about.
6 posts a day is a lot. How big or small are the posts? Like, how many words do you figure out you spit out in a day?
In a day.
So if you look at EliTheComputerGuy.com, we were having people write posts for a while, and those were like 600 word posts. So 600 word posts is kind of like the standard for full post, I guess you would say, 500, 600. Okay. So like how many words? Because you were saying some are 2,000, some are
probably per day. If I'm going off of a completely non-scientific average.
Yeah.
1,000. Some posts are as short as 120 words.
Jeez.
Some are 400, 500,
Okay.
550, 600, 700. You know, we tend to be in that 400 to 800 range more often than not.
So what, you average just 1,000 words per day?
Sometimes these are very short posts on a day. I mean, 1,000 to 1,500 words a day.
Okay.
You know, it's a lot of copy.
Yeah.
It's certainly a lot of copy, a lot of words to be doing every week.
Yeah. Okay. What is your current favorite tech?
My current favorite,
Especially being around this stuff.
Tech.
Like, what are you all giddy as a scroll go?
What am I all giddy about? Okay. So Parking Panda, I like them. I'm interested in what they do.
Yeah.
And so Parking Panda is a company in Baltimore that started out doing this over mobile and web apps, peer-to-peer, rent your driveway out if you're not using it, if your car isn't in it. They've since totally shifted or pivoted, as we say in the startup world. And you're basically doing capacity in parking garages around a bunch of cities. They're in a whole bunch of cities around the U.S. Here, Philly, New York, Dallas, San Francisco, and working with companies who own parking garages and trying to figure out whether they're at capacity or not. Okay. So that the people who own the garages always know, oh, we always have 20 spaces still available. How do we make sure that everyone is coming into our garage to do that? Yeah. That's interesting. These two Micah sophomores just released an app called Crowds that I thought was a little savvy. And obviously it just came out. You got to see whether people use it. Yeah. But the premise is, so instead of setting up an event, say on somewhere like Facebook where you're directly inviting people, put this on an app. You're only allowed to set events anywhere from 15 minutes to 1 day into the future. Okay. And people follow you as they would on Twitter. So a particular event is open to any of a particular user's followers. So say Eli and I are going to have beers tonight. You know, and I do this on Crowds and I say, drink beers with Eli and me in 3 hours. Here, if 10 people are following me on Crowds, they'll see this. Okay. You know, and I'll say this is the bar where we'll be at in 3 hours, and they might show up as a result of that. Again, very new. Got to see what it is. But I thought that was a little savvy, a different way of looking at it. And one of the students behind this said to me, we wrote about it on the site, said to me, I think, and I'm paraphrasing, in the future, it isn't going to necessarily be about creating an entirely new core technology. It's going to be about taking aspects of things we already know and making them work better, making the experience better, which I thought was a bit prescient. I think that tends to be how you find a way to make an app stick with people.
Yeah, cool. Let's see here. Hey, technically, if your company, Andrew, if your company went belly up tomorrow, what is your plan B?
My plan B is I do freelancing on the side, so you know I would just be doing more of that, and working my butt off. That would be the idea. You know, but I also have to pay rent, so if I need to get another job, you gotta get another job.
So basically, it's get another. It's just
you know, work.
Plan B is everybody's plan B. Do you know much about the Screw Gold campaign? Do you know the Screw Gold campaign?
A little bit.
As a media person, you just need to know a little bit. Like, what's your impression of the Screw Gold campaign? Does that make Microsoft look good? As a media person, are you like, what the hell?
It just seems like you're reaching. You know, like you're just reaching a bit. You know, I mean, desperation.
Desperation. Okay, well, there you go. Andrew, are you continuing maintaining your education, and if so, what are you doing? Are you taking college or continuing?
No, I have a Bachelor of Arts degree. In journalism, some people go to journalism school. Some people get their masters. I don't see that happening for me anytime soon. It might. As of right now, it's not on my radar.
Is there something, whether or not you want to do it, is there education that you know would make your career better, or is it all kind of that whole maybe or maybe, you know, it's
yeah, you know, I suppose if I were in a different field of reporting, but even then, I mean, I think it's some of the best advice I'd ever read about, and this was several years after I declared my English major, but you know, seasoned journalists talking to wannabe journalists, you know, what should you study? And they always say, go to college and study something like history. Know what happened in the past, so that when, say, politicians are telling stuff to you, you can go, or learn philosophy, so that you don't embed, to use some tech language here, your articles with just logical fallacies all over the place, which journalists are also fond of doing, though not intentionally. You know, learn economics. If you want to be a financial reporter, learn economics. And so when it comes to tech, I think if you're really going to be talking about not the business of tech startups, I mean talking about technology, God, you better know what a Linux server is. I mean, and so in that sense, it would probably behoove any journalist who wants to do that sort of technology reporting to get a comp sci degree. You know, I mean,
okay. So it actually, you'd say focus on whatever the niche you want to go for. Focus on.
And I always went into journalism being like, you know, I think there's still a place for generalists even after the recession and everyone panicked. And so I mean that's probably where I'm coming from as a journalist. I'm much more a generalist than anything else.
Question: PS4 or Xbox One?
Oh man. I can't refer to the South Park episodes on these, can I? Probably PS4. So the last time I touched a video game console was probably when my brother and I were 14, 13. He had a PlayStation.
Really?
I always preferred PlayStations. I mean, I remember playing Nintendo DS. I had an N64. Donkey Kong 64 was the greatest game ever invented.
I saw all you youngins. I thought all you had PS4 and Xbox One.
No.
And Wii U. No video games?
I'm a boring person. I don't have a television.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's... I guess that shows.
It costs money. Cable costs money. You know.
Let's see here. Money is money. Okay. We'll scroll through a few more questions and we'll call it a day. Sound is good. Sound is great. By Unity.
Everyone loves the sound.
Yeah. Please some classes. Do you know anything about quantum computers? Does that come up around here?
Quantum computers does not come up around here.
I gotta ask. Let's see here. Oh, do you know how to touch type? You know, think about that. I'm really quick.
Yeah, no. I'm a home row. I'm a home row baby.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in elementary school playing, I guess, a knockoff of the Super Mario game where the only way you got Mario to jump was by clicking S. And they put the box over your keyboard so that you can't look down, and you just gotta learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all the questions for today. Let me see if there's anything else. I guess that'll be the final question. So especially, at least in the tech field, because you talked about Sean Gallagher's the name, right, with Ars Technica?
Sean Gallagher is the IT editor over at Ars Technica.
Do you any of your drugs, drink any of your Kool-Aid? Like, do you follow any? Do you actually follow? Not like Hamish exists. Hamish McKenzie at Pando. Do you actually follow any of these folks? These other tech writers?
Just in terms of what they're publishing on Twitter, or do I talk to them?
Well, I know you talk to them because you're a professional, but no, do you follow them? Like, like I say, somebody may follow Eli the computer.
Yeah, I mean, I follow them on Twitter, and I try to keep abreast of what they're writing about and what they're looking into.
But is there any like specific one where you go, like I say, I do like Ars Technica. It's like go to Ars Technica? Is there any?
I love reading Ars Technica.
Yeah.
I go to Ars Technica. I try to read as much of Hamish's stuff as I can. I try to read as much of Christopher Mims is the guy at Quartz. I try to read as much of his stuff as I can.
Yeah.
You know, I like going to Ars Technica because it's broad. I'm gonna get a lot of information about a lot of different aspects of technology.
Yeah.
You know, Pando is very focused on tech startups. Quartz is more businessy with the tech in there.
Okay.
You know, if I'm rushed and I need to just like a one-stop shop real quick, I'll pop open ours real quick and just look around the home screen and see what's going on.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So I think that's it, or that's at least that's the questions that we'll have for today. So good. Any parting thoughts to tell these folks?
No, just thank you very much for having me on.
All right, cool, yeah. Cool. So as you guys know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, and this is Andrew Zaleski. Again, technically, let's go over to that screen again, just so you guys know what we're talking about. So again, if you guys want to take a look at technically, technical.ly. If you go there. This is not a .com domain name. This is actually a .ly domain name, so don't do .ly.com. You
can also do tbmore.com.
tbmore? So tbmore, apparently. tbmore.
tbmore. Yes. Yes.
Oh my god. Sorry guys, I'm actually laughing. tbmore. So
you are a terrible person. Do you know that? This is a first on the Daily Blob Show. I don't think Ed Mullen made him laugh this much.
TB.
Are you going to be okay? Are we going to be able to wrap this up?
Oh, especially if you guys knew Baltimore.
Do you have a defibrillator anywhere? I feel like we're going to need that at some point.
Oh my god, that's just so hilarious.
Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Anyway, so there we go. That's technically... Yeah. Anyways, I will see you guys Monday. Yeah, it's Friday, right? Yeah, Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to go and laugh my ass off. It's just TB more. It's just funny in so many ways. Yes. Anyways, so see you guys next week.